to the regular meeting of the Water Management District on February 24th. We will start with roll call.
Director Anderson. Here. Director Daniels. Here. Director Edwards.
Here.
Director Lindor. Here. Director Paul is absent. Vice Chair Oglesby.
Here.
Chair Riley.
Here.
We have 6 members of the board present.
And just to clarify, the absent member is not on Zoom, therefore we're not
Correct.
going through roll call on all the actions.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, I wonder if I ask the mayor to start.
Oh, yes. Please join me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next on the agenda is the consent calendar. Well, no, first oral communications from the public. If there, is there any public? Are there any public? Is our on Zoom?
We have 1 attendee.
Okay, well, announce it to all, are there any oral communications on any subject that is not on the agenda? You have 3 minutes and please come forward or let your interest be known.
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, and no one inside. Okay, back to the board, consent calendar. There are 5 items on the consent calendar. Does any member of the board want to discuss or pull one item for any reason?
P9, just for a comment.
P9, oh, that's item
No,
number
P2,
2. Okay.
Okay.
page 9.
Page
Page
9.
nine,
Okay, well, we'll come back to that. Okay, any other items to be pulled?
Chair, I move approval of consent agenda, less Pete was picked,
That's item 2. Is
admin.
there a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. I'm sorry, didn't mean to say none. Opposed? No. Okay, the 1, 3, 4, and 5 have passed. Item number 2.
Just a comment. Is there anything out there new that we get for conservation equipment? Come on up and put you on the mic. Cause I heard you at administrative, I looked at it, but I didn't hear nothing new, but the prices are going up.
Correct. Good afternoon or evening, directors. No new items this year. But we do keep our eye out for new items.
Okay, yeah, because with the prices going up, I expect y'all out there to be shopping around and letting those people know that, hey, we're looking, give us something new or find another vendor.
Yes, and from what I understood is we made this agreement at the right time because prices are going up at the end of February or at the beginning of March, so we're in there at the right time.
Okay, thank you.
Just for my own edification, Chair, who, and you are?
I am Kyle Smith. I'm with the Conservation Division.
Great.
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good reminder of staff to introduce themselves. So new members here, but also we don't normally interact at the staff level, so it's good that we know.
And the public chair.
And the public.
I move approval of
Item 2, is
consent 2.
there a second?
Second.
Second by Kate. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. And general managers report.
Yes, and while Sarah's pulling that up, I just wanted to draw your attention, if you didn't see it, to the Herald on Sunday. The cover of the second section had a nice article about our fish rescue crew.
Yeah, you took my thunder.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right, but thank you.
With a photo front and center, well, front and to the left of one of our employees out in the middle of the river, and then another photo.
Corey Hamilton,
Pardon me?
Corey Hamilton.
No, that was actually Daniel. Corey shows up in the electronic version, though. So if you
Yeah,
access
that's
it
what I think.
electronically, yeah, you can spot him by the big beard that he has as he's walking down the river. But anyway, it was a very nice article. It was precipitated by executive order on federal cuts and a question of whether that would affect us. The general answer is no, it doesn't affect fish rescues, but any future rethinking the Endangered Species Act probably would. But anyways, a nice article. And with that, item 6 on the agenda is the general manager report. As you can see from the first page, it's hard to remember month to month what's going on, but we're kind of catching up with the budget on Carmel River withdrawals. We've gained about 30 acre feet. So they had, meaning California American, had been hitting the river a little harder than we had budgeted. And now they're backing off just a little bit, and you'll see some increase in some pure water Monterey. But anyway, it's coming back into balance. But it's not a bad thing. We kind of support their effort to take more river water in the winter. We just don't want them to take all the river water and then accidentally slip across the regulatory limit. So that's looking pretty good. You can see that in the Seaside Basin, apart from the Laguna Seca, which is basically Hidden Hills at this point, which is still a disconnected system, that the Seaside Basin's in pretty good general balance there. Next slide, please. Our other water projects and rights. This is where you can see that they had been taking more river water, less pure water Monterey water. We've actually delivered to them in this water year a little over 1,300, 1,319, which is much closer to the target. So they haven't taken all of that yet. And as I said, that's not particularly alarming. It'd be nice to see if we can get them to balance winter river withdrawals with a little bit later in the season pure water Monterey withdrawals. Next slide, please, Sarah. This is the 4 months, or 1/3 of a water year by resource. In addition to what I've already told you, you can see Sand City has now had 4 months in a row with a reasonable amount of production. 25 acre feet per month would be actually the max, and we don't really expect them to ever achieve the max based on past operating history. So somewhere in the 15 to 20 acre feet per month is a pretty good number. So they have been getting some of that. Next slide on rainfall. It's a little disappointing so far. We've had just under 5.5 inches through the end of January, which is about 49% of long-term average. But February is better, which you can see from the next chart. The little blue bars in February are daily rainfall, and then the red line is the cumulative rainfall. And so normally in February, we get about 4.5 inches. We already got 6.6 inches in February. So even if it stays dry through Friday, it'll be above average. And so if you were to project to the end of the month with no more rain, we'll be at 77% of long-term average. So in 1 month, moved from 44% to 77%, which is good. I suspect, there's a significant risk that will be average or below average, but February itself has helped us get back to just in that below average area, which is better than dry. Next slide is stream flow. The late rains and the lack of January rain shows also a lack of stream flow in January. We're actually at 21% of long-term average. But But oddly, our storage, our usable storage is at 101% of long-term average. So what we've learned through the years is even one good month of rain can pretty much replenish the aquifer, which in some future water supply planning committee meeting and maybe the full board will give you a little bit of background, but generally speaking, there's 6 to 7 years worth of legal water right that sits in the alluvial aquifer when it's full. So you get one good month, you kind of replenish that supply. So you could weather the storm of 2 to 3 dry years quite easily if you've had one good month in a, in a normal to below average winter. So positive that way. And then finally, aquifer storage and recovery. The yellow bars are the daily inputs and the blue line is the cumulative. And we broke through 245 acre feet yesterday. So a good outcome, given that we didn't get a lot of rain and we didn't meet our regulatory targets until last month. So
Through the chair,
Sure.
Dave, and that 245 acre feet is going through 2 wells, right?
yep, we only have access right now to injection wells 1 and 2. And we're using them both, depending on the water right and depending what criteria we're trying to meet.
Now, if we had all 4 of them,
So the most we can do with 2 is about 13 acre feet on average. If we had all 4, we'd only be at about 17 or 18 acre feet. So it's not, you wouldn't double, but you would have more options, I guess.
and my last question, we cannot use 3 and 4 again for ASR. Make that clear.
Well, eventually we would like to, but right now they're both in production mode. And I'll be completely straight with you. California American does not want to use ASR 4 anymore in production mode. So after it got dismantled and put back together and what's known as a Baskey valve was taken out, you need the Baskey valve to use it for injection. But due to some hydrogen sulfide issues on water quality, they haven't wanted to use the mercury elimination system, which was needed to get readings, but there was actually no mercury in the water itself. And so they needed 2 years of quarterly reads. We've kind of lost that option now at this point because it hasn't been producing continuously through that 2-year period. So we'd like to get it back, replumb it maybe as solely an injection well if CalAm doesn't intend to continue to use it in the future. But right now it's plumbed to be an extraction well.
Okay, and 1 and 2 is ours?
Yeah.
The district, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
go ahead. Another question.
Yes, just a few questions through the chair, just so I can get up to speed on ASR, because I really get excited about this. I love it. Production mode means what for those? wells?
extracting water from the ground and
Okay.
putting it into the distribution system.
Therefore, we cannot
Question.
use it for injection.
Correct.
Okay, and then when you said 2 wells is 13 acres, is that per day?
Yeah.
And so if we had all 4, it would be 17 to 18 per day.
Correct.
Acre feet. And then just how does it work? We reach this regulatory target and do we then just turn a nozzle and say we're starting? with
Well, there's a whole,
ASR?
a whole series of nozzles, but yeah, so California American as the distribution system operator will produce water off the Carmel River using their regular wells.
Mhm.
So a good example of that would be the Pierce well, which is at the end of one of the cul-de-sacs, Prado del Sol.
Heard from those folks before, yes.
And so just like you would be serving a customer, in this case, you're pulling water out with the wells, shipping it up to the Begonia Iron Removal Plant, kind of mid-valley.
Yep.
Comes out of the plant, goes back into a distribution system, then up over the hill through the entrance to Tehama.
Okay,
Hits the top of the hill and it goes into what's called Crest Tank. And this is a good lesson just for any of our listeners. And then from the Crest Tank down the hill through Montera and then up to General Jim Moore Boulevard and injected into one of 4 wells or 2 of 4 wells or 3 of 4 wells at a time.
Got it. That is super helpful. And then this 245 acre feet that we hit yesterday, what is the maximum acre feet we could get per year from this? Do we get cut off at a certain point?
No, so our permit is from December 1 through May 30th. The issue then is only how much rain did you get?
Okay.
And our constraints, and we've seen this kind of year in and year out, our constraints are any wells go out in the valley, then you can pull less water out of the river. Or if any of the injection wells become unavailable in the seaside area, then you can't inject as much. So the goal is to have, generally speaking, all 4 injection wells available and every production well near the river, both the upper reaches of the river and the lower reaches of the river available. But last year when Paso Hondo flooded and other parts of the river flooded, wells were taken offline so you wouldn't get electrical shorts, and then it takes time to get them back online.
Got it.
And then you want to maintain fire flow levels in tanks, and so sometimes you trade off producing water to send to seaside for injection to refilling the tanks. And so whenever something breaks down, that's when all those numbers like 13 or 18 get tossed up.
Thank you.
But in a great year, we could do, I think our water rights are close to 5,000 plus acre feet. The best we've done is, close to 2,700.
Okay, thank you.
And for planning purposes, you use,
Well, the 58-year average is 1,210. So we've typically used 1,210 for planning. But we have a scenario that says something's going to break. We're not sure what it is. So use 75% of that number.
Question through the chair?
yes, I'm certain.
I'll ask this question. How is the ownership of those wells distributed between
Yep.
the district and?
So all of the production wells off the river, so the actual extraction of water from the Carmel River to go inject somewhere else are all California American wells. And then of the injection sites, we own 1 and 2, and California American owns 3 and 4. And all 4 of those wells were originally designed to do both injection in the winter and extraction in the summer. But we've had a few years where we would use like well number 1 for extraction year round or for multiple months. You usually have to leave about a month between injection and extraction because this is drinking water. So it's already been chlorinated and you have potential chlorine after effects that you have to kind of, wait 30 days before you start pumping it back out. But yeah, that's the ownership structure, which is, why it's really Cal-Am's prerogative to decide how to use wells 3 and 4.
Thank you.
Good education, a good reminder. There's probably more in your report.
Yeah, well, so item 7 is a quick update. I just wanted to apprise you that the expansion of Pure Water Monterey remains on schedule. But we're starting to, we're going through a lot of very tiny shutdowns of the advanced water purification facility. So this is the manufacturer of the water at the plant site up in North Marina. Because as we bring the expansion online, we have to kind of shut everything down to bring them online. So I think we've seen nearly 60 shutdowns, or we will see a total of nearly 60 shutdowns off and on through April. But that's a good sign. That means that the new filtration, the new reverse osmosis, everything's being linked with the already existing. So they're being brought together. The injection wells, so 2 new injection wells, 5 and 6, are complete, but the electrical is still being finished, but it's on schedule. And let's see, and they're really good wells. They proved out to be pretty high capacity. So we're very pleased with how the wells turned out. I mentioned major electrical needs to be delivered. That'll be March. The pipeline that brings the water, we have a conveyance pipeline that's co-owned by Monterey One Water and Marina Coast Water District. Then there's a branch to bring this water up, basically to get it to the new injection wells. And it's all the way up to the point of interconnection with Marina Coast Water District's point of interconnection. So hopefully that'll be finished here in short order. And really where we're at right now is just the regional water board needs to issue what are called water discharge requirements, WDRs, and that permit process depends on an engineering report. The Division of Drinking Water appears to now have gotten through the engineering report. That'll move it along to the regional board, and they'll have a hearing probably late summer of this year. And so the soonest we'll be ready to go is still October, November. And our biggest risk right now is a delay in that regulatory review, not in the construction. So yeah, it's looking good. You know, it's still lined up with our allocation of the new water that's, going into effect as a result of last month's board meeting. And then the attempt that we'll make to lift the cease and desist order kind of timed with this project coming online. So it's, fingers crossed that everything stays in line.
Yes, questions?
Just through the chair, are we talking about Pure Water Monterey expansion?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I got lost there. Okay, thank you.
And then two other items I want to bring on water supply.
But before you leave that subject. you have
No,
another
go
question?
ahead,
Okay.
go ahead. I can.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that Monterey One Water also has a board meeting tonight. Two things they're considering. One is an extension of the short-term lease agreement on their outfall, which speaks to the single slant well, the test slant well. They got their, Cal-Am got their land lease renewed by the State Lands Commission for just the test well. And so to the extent the test well needs to be turned on, you need a discharge point. So the short-term lease with the existing outfall is up for renewal on tonight's agenda at Monterey One Water. And then also as part of the desalination project, Cal-Am's desalination project is the long-term use of the outfall. And also on the agenda next door tonight is a contract with Brown and Caldwell on two components, kind of what we would call the on-land portions of the outfall, and then the offshore components of the outfall. And we're kind of waiting on direction to see, so it was identified that some sort of pressure relief mechanism might be needed in order to use the outfall for a desalination plant. And that pressure relief mechanism would likely require more CEQA work, if not an addendum or amendment to the CEQA that have been done. So they're looking at alternatives. That's not part of what they're looking to approve tonight. Tonight is the lining, the mixing area and so forth. But that effort continues as if the permitting of the Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project, i.e. desal plant, is continuing to move forward. But keep in mind, of the conditional coastal commission permit, there are 20 conditions, and many of those are multi-part conditions. So this is just an attempt to move forward. Similarly, there's, you may have seen this or about to see it, let's say in the weekly calendar or somewhere, but I think it'll be in the weekly, just a small notice. There will be a public workshop in the city of Marina about the public access agreement should the desalination plant get built. California American promised the Coastal Commission that they would pony up $3 million for certain public access activities or amenities. And so I believe the Coastal Commission agreement said that they would hold 5 public workshops, so this would be the first of those 5. So there are things taking place related to the desalination. And that concludes the update on water supply projects. The only other thing I wanted to bring up in the GM report is in item 19, the conservation report, there is a section Roman numeral 2, letter C, which is what we call the open permit process. This is a status report on the amnesty program, and those are the activities that took place in January.
Yeah, you right on top of it.
Yeah.
That was my next question.
And
Looking at you.
in the chart in in exhibit 18A, you can see a slight change in the district reserve, and that reflects the itsy bitsy amount of water that we needed to close out those 100 or so permits that got closed out in January.
Oh, good full report. Okay. Any other questions for the general manager from the county, from the board? Okay, the next item is, there are no action items presented there. Next is report from the district council.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. By way of explanation as to why I was promoted to the more comfortable seat here. Michael has 4-year-old twins, and one of them unfortunately has RSV and spent the last 4 days in community hospital, and he was discharged to go home sometime about 5 o'clock tonight. So he's on the mend, but Michael asked me to cover. So in terms of the actual report, 2 items. First of all, I want to take a trip back in time to January the 27th. There were 2 items on your closed session at that time. General manager's performance evaluation. There was no reportable action taken at that time. There was some general direction provided, and that general direction is going to be discussed in open session and proposed action tonight on the agenda item 11. That's at page 69. So that's a coming attraction as well. The other discussion in closed session was the status of 5 cases of the Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association against the Water Management District concerning the collection of the water supply charge. There was no reportable action taken. And again, I'm going to hit upon that under pending litigation. But in terms of the closed session report, no action was taken there. With respect to the pending litigation report, the public summary of that is in your board packet under item 8 at page 53. The first report is on the collective Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association cases, and the settlement process is well underway. There has been a concept of a refund process and payment of fees that will come out of that. That needs to be ratified by the court, though. That has not yet happened. There was a case management conference that has been continued for the moment to allow the settlement to wind its way through. So I'm anticipating by the time that this is going to be a report at your next month, we will have the final words of the settlement that is ready to be implemented. Looking at the lawsuit concerning Measure J and the proposed acquisition of CalAm's Monterey Division Water Supply Facilities. We had a case management conference that was set for March 4th. That's likely to be continued. There's a joint request to have that be continued into May. The reason for that is the 4th Appellate District's published opinion in terms of the Apple Valley acquisition. And that published opinion contained language that is contrary to another doctrine of law in another case. And just on Friday, the matter was a petition to the California Supreme Court that they take the case up for review to reconcile which of those theories or whatever new theory should proceed. So the Supreme Court now has 60 days from Friday to decide whether it will receive the case for hearing. Given the fact that there are 2 contrary published opinions, it's very, very likely that the Supreme Court would take that for review. Once the Supreme Court decides it is taking it for review, that's going to start the process where they order the appellate record. They come before them, they'll come up with a briefing schedule. Eventually there'll be oral argument. That's about an 18-month process all in all. And there'll be opportunity for amicus briefs and others to participate. But that's all in the future. At the moment, both Cal-Am and the district have sought a continuation of the case management conference before Judge Vallarta because we were not yet certain at the time we wrote this that as to whether or not the matter would go before the Supreme Court. And so that will affect how the court is going to manage the case. We anticipate, Cal-Am has told us that they will want to bring a early motion for summary judgment to take a look at the district's ability to acquire Cal-Am. These are the LAFCO issues. And then there will probably be opportunities for a cross motion by the district that will also further constrain that. So we're anticipating that the motion for summary judgment would be filed sometime in March or April. That's what Cal-Am is telling us. And we are looking then at a hearing on that motion that's likely to occur during the summer, sometime between July and September. We will know more when the judge actually weighs in on the case management conference.
This year or next year?
This year on that process, but that's what's going on in parallel with that is also discovery, and it's a long haul. With respect to the LAF,
One question on that, Mr. Warrior.
yes,
When they have a situation like this, when there's two appellate decisions and they're opposite each other, what happens?
okay, it's the judge determines the standard that the court will apply. And when there are two precedents that are not coinciding with each other, the judge has a freedom to decide which of the rules of law should apply in this case because of the facts and circumstances of this case, and also which case is better reasoned in the context of the case here. So the judge has discretion as to which would apply and to give reasons as to why.
Okay, so that's good.
Another question?
A few questions through the chair. Do you know if the more favorable decision came first or second?
The second, the Apple Valley case is the one that is more favorable from the district's perspective. And we believe, quite frankly, that case, the opinion in that case, because it had the earlier case as a foil, that we believe that the Apple Valley case is better reasoned as well.
Got it. And then in regards to the second case, the LAFCO issue one, it says that a hearing on the motion will likely be set in the July, August, September timeframe, depending on the court's schedule. That type of hearing, what does that look like? I mean, is there, this might be a really naive question, but is there public testimony or anything like that?
We believe that would be a summary judgment. So the facts are assumed. It's not going to be a factual inquiry. It's going to be an argument based upon the law.
Okay.
So it'd be a hearing before the judge alone, and with references to the record, but not any live testimony.
And this judge, is this an appeal from the Wills decision? Is it in a different court? Or is it back?
This is a different, this is the district's petition to acquire Cal-Am and its facilities. But Cal-Am has raised in a defense that the district does not have the legal right to acquire.
Because of the LAFCO issues.
That's correct.
Got it.
But the LAFCO case is on appeal by CalAm, and the district did prevail.
So this is the actual eminent domain.
That's correct. This is the
Hearing.
eminent domain case.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay?
And just clarification for everybody. Earlier, you referred to the judge choosing which appeal.
Which of the published opinions should apply?
But is it unlikely or likely that our eminent domain case will move forward until the Supreme Court has heard the Apple Valley case?
It depends. I believe that the process for the eminent domain case is likely to take so long that the decision in Apple Valley will be before us, before that is resolved. But if it was not resolved, the court has the authority to proceed and does not have to wait for that. That would require a separate action to enjoin or delay the prosecution of the case. And that is highly unlikely.
So in other words, I wanted you to hear that the Supreme Court will take 18 months to get to a decision, very likely. And if Judge Vallarta locally wants to wait on that decision to inform her, then we're stuck.
But we can ask to proceed.
That's correct.
And there will be certain aspects that we would proceed on.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yes.
But
Thank you.
But the level of discovery could be impacted, and so here we are starting our discovery process and so forth, so.
Going on to the
Oh,
LAFCO
boy.
matter, the district brought a lawsuit to challenge LAFCO's conduct, its administrative decision-making. Judge Wills did rule in favor of the district and against LAFCO and CalAm, and that is now on appeal. LAFCO and CalAm did appeal that, and the record is before the appellate court, and CalAm and LAFCO jointly requested extension of time to file opening briefs. This is their second extension of time that was just granted, so they have until the 20th of March to file their opening briefs. I don't anticipate the appellate court would allow a further extension. They've already had several extensions, and it's time to proceed. Once their briefs are filed, then the district will have its opportunity to file briefs in the matter.
And just one point on that case, it's true, just confirm, CalAm held LAFCO harmless in agreement between LAFCO and CalAm. Therefore, CalAm is paying the full bill
Yeah,
on this,
but that's not part of the case, so that's
but that's for us to understand.
that's correct.
Man, that's just a
That's my
reminder.
understanding of the facts.
Okay, thank you.
That's just a small issue.
There is no change in the litigation of the district and City of Marina with respect to the Coastal Commission's issuance of the coastal development permit. That matter is before Judge Wills, who has that taken under submission. I would anticipate by the time we provide a report to you in March that we'll have a better idea as to what the status of that case is. In terms of the Public Utilities Commission and action on the amended water purchase agreement, an inquiry was made with respect to the status of that case by CalAm. CalAm's counsel asked the ALJ to respond as to where is this case, and the ALJ responded on February 11th to the effect, and I quote, "Proposed decisions on outstanding issues in this proceeding are targeted for issuance in spring of 2025. That's as definitive as you ever get from the Public Utilities Commission, and it's targeted for, so there's no guarantee that we'll know that. We've had a slow start to the year with respect to litigation issues. The last item that I'd like to touch upon is the status of the the request for attorney's fees from the Sierra Club. There has been contact with Sierra Club Counsel, Don Mooney. There was some question as to the status of their longtime attorney, Larry Silver, who represented the Sierra Club and Carmel River Steelhead Association. There was some question because the state bar did report that he was not actively practicing, but we've had contact with him. It appears that that was a paperwork issue and that he is properly practicing law and representing the Sierra Club. But Don Mooney is the active lead attorney for the Sierra Club on that. I've had contact with Don Mooney and with Mr. Silver, and I anticipate that we're going to have a more substantive discussion coming forward in March on the issues. The Sierra Club has sought to settle for an attorney's fees motion, but they are not proceeding at the same pace with the district as they are with Cal-Am. They're trying to seek settlement with the district first and have not pushed Cal-Am for a settlement. And that's something that we need to clarify what that status is. So that concludes my report.
Very thorough report, and thank you.
Yeah.
No other questions from the board? Okay, next item, let's see, item 9 is reports or meetings or comments from board members from their extracurricular time activities.
Oh, that's on here?
Well, it's report from district, report from activities.
As relates to
Hey,
this,
I
as relates
got
to the
it. I've
district.
got a
relates
report
to-
to share.
Relates to the district. Okay,
Just want to share if I can then, if this is the appropriate time, that I did get to go swimming in the Carmel River this weekend. It's very clean and clear. It's that perfect time of year when after the storm, it is like crystal clear. You could see the fish if there were fish to be seen, and I'm guessing from the report that we heard about, there are. It was very cold and it was very nice. The river is
Very good.
very, very healthy.
Sure you, the fish saw you.
Where did you swim?
Near my house.
So,
The Laurellis grade would be probably the closest marker.
mhm.
it's the first report I've ever heard. Swimming in.
Well, consider it
Hey.
clean. That's important to know.
Any other reports from board members? Alan?
Thank you, Chair. February 5th, Seaside Basin Watermaster Committee, Board. We're talking about the Seaside Basin. We're talking about other things that going to affect the peninsula and the ratepayers. One thing that I asked this board if they will let them put their their Zoom meeting on our website, on our YouTube website. So you'll be able to monitor the meetings and what's going on. I like to report to them on next month, on March 5th, that it's okay. So I ran it across the general manager, and it'd be left up to Sarah or I would tell them to contact Sarah so they can put those Zoom meetings on our YouTube website and catch up. It'd be good for the members, it'd be good for the public, because their website, people don't know too much about, but I know our website and YouTube network, quite a few people look at it, especially me. So I follow up on all the committee meetings. So that has happened. And I like to thank the Herald and the Weekly. They did 2 articles. The GM mentioned one about the Carmel River that the Herald did. And the Weekly did one on the Seaside Basin, on that activity that we're doing in the Seaside Basin. It's good that the public is hearing this, that the district, the Water Management District, is still out there doing these things, especially with the Seaside Basin and the Carmel River. So I appreciate the GM and staff, Corey and them, for taking the time to help those two papers, and I thank those papers for putting it out to the public, what's going on. And that's it. That's my report. Thank you.
I just want to point out the San Jose Mercury News picked up on the Steelhead story as well. So.
How about the swimming story?
So do we have?
Hopefully it ended well.
But it's February. I mean, it's
It gets pretty murky pretty quick. You gotta take it when you can.
So do we have to have a proposal to pass for the the YouTube thing?
No, so they do have a website. So the first step's if they want to try to post something on their own, we can probably provide the advice to do so. But we already have a YouTube website, so the offer that we'll make is if you want to post them, we'll be happy to. Sarah will be happy to create kind of a sub area where you could find them. But we haven't had enough communication.
Thank you.
So I just hope that at our March meeting, I'm gonna tell them. So everybody's informed. If y'all look on there and see something about the water master, that's the best place to find it, I think, is on ours, all water. Thank you.
And I have a comment I want to just share. I did a little bit of research and I don't expect any discussion or any action or anything from this, but it's just some research I conducted and a little bit of help from Dave, but most of this is my work. Caliam proposes desal for 6.4 MGD in 2013. It's 12 years ago. In September 2016, it made its first estimate of the overall cost of $329 million. That was published in its quarterly progress report. That was in 2016. That estimate has remained unchanged till today for 8 years. It was repeated again in its last report that I saw, which was in fall of 2024. They still used the number $329 million. It's 8 years old. That estimate has not been updated. All the public knows is this 8-year-old estimate. It's also the only information we have. It's also the only estimate before the PUC. My question is, what about inflation? We have experienced COVID, economic slowdown, several recent years of more inflation. There was a key subject during the last 2 national elections. No one would think this 8-year-old estimate is valid. Excuse me, over a cough. Caliam stated in its original proposal it would update its estimate with the construction price escalation index. And yet there hasn't been no update since then. The most recent statewide construction cost index, this is an inflation index, is to be over 40% just in the last 5 years. Just using the 5-year index, ignoring the fact that it's been 8 years since the original estimate. Construction costs within this very index identified by Caliam, costs have increased over 40%, 40.7% in just 5 years. That would bring the estimated desal cost to more than $463 million in today's dollars. Caliam's proposed $6.4 million desal would deliver 6,252 acre feet. That's what the 6.4 MGD production would be in acre feet. And then doing the calculation of cost, it would cost $7,400 per acre foot. Who will pay $7,400 per acre foot when pure water Monterey expansion will only cost about $4,000 per acre foot? Who in their right minds will want to pay an 85% more for the privilege to use desal water? There is no market for such high-priced water. My focus of this is directed toward Caliam. What is Caliam thinking if it proposed to update its estimates and then has neglected to do so for 8 years? What is it that Caliam does not want you to know, or what is it that might embarrass Caliam if it did so? I have a hunch that Caliam is not updating its cost estimate because it will eventually argue for a smaller desal. It's also been in the discussion at several points. A smaller desal, 4.8 NGD. It will use the current estimate of $329 to finance a smaller plant. If that were their thinking, the smaller plant would still have a higher unit cost, probably around $8,000 per acre foot. Again, who in their right mind is going to pay that kind of money for water when an alternative is available? Maybe Cal-Am is hoping it might be a candidate for the extraction barrier under consideration for the Salinas Valley Basin. But that is a 15, 20 years away at best, in my opinion. It also might be waiting for a favorable ruling by the PUC so that it can continue to collect from ratepayers for desal planning. So what is my point? By not updating its cost estimate for desal, Cal-Am is misleading the public. Apparently it is a specific decision not to update its estimate, since it was so obvious that inflation has eroded any cost, any basis for the original estimate of $329 million. Cal-Am is refusing to acknowledge reality. It is not transparent, it is not forthright, it is misleading all customers. It is particularly not forthcoming with the PUC. So now my point. What is particularly astonishing to me is that many business interests, mainly through chambers of commerce and the Business Coalition, continue to advocate for the enormously expensive desal. When will business interests wake up? My question. There will be no market for water costing $75,000 to $8,000 per acre foot. When will business do the numbers? Why are they reluctant to actually do the numbers and understand the only conclusion that can be made? There is no market for water at such a high price. And Cal-Am's credibility continues to sink. That's all I want to say. So going on with let that sink in. I'll let that sink in. Okay, next we're on action items on the agenda. Item number 10 is the resolution for fix a leak week. Fix a leak week.
All right, let's try this again. Good evening, directors. My name is Kyle Smith with the Water Demand Division. And where I'm gonna go through this presentation on Fix a Week Leak, EPA's annual reminders to fix leaks. All right. So this is just a reminder to go out there, find leaks in your home, business, and it'll run the week of the 17th to the 23rd. It also has been going on since 2009 when the EPA started this. I don't know if this is. All right, so how are we gonna find these leaks? Part of it is leak detection, identifying where your shutoff is at your home, identifying where your meter is, learning how to read your meter, finding the low flow indicator on the meter, and making a determination on whether or not you have a leak in your home or not. Okay. The district offers these leak detection kits for your toilets. They're 2 little dye tablets that you place in the tank of the toilet and they will turn the water blue. You can also use some food coloring. And then you let the water sit, turn blue, and if it goes into the bowl, you have a leak. And then we can go to the next slide. So most of your toilet leaks are going to come from the flapper valve. It will get corroded and start to deteriorate and leak very slowly. Sometimes you'll hear your toilet running, sometimes you won't, and those dye tablets come in handy. We also give toilet flappers out, and there's a rebate for them as well. Faucets will drip, and we have drip gauges that will tell you after 5 seconds how much water that drip is going to use through the year. There are many tutorials on EPA's website with some great videos for DIY people. If you're not like ambitious about taking on your own plumbing project. Then we have shower heads. I would recommend picking up one of our water sense labeled shower heads from the district, adding some Teflon tape and seeing if that doesn't work before moving on to a contractor or plumber to come out and take a look. It is going to be spring soon and you'll start turning your irrigation systems on. It's a great reminder to go out and do that and check for leaks. They've been off since October, so things do break and you can have those repaired before it's running, because it's gonna run in the evening time and early hours of the morning, and you're not gonna see it until it's too late. And then finally, if you do need to replace appliances and faucets, we recommend replacing it with WaterSense labeled products. That is the EPA's standard for appliances and faucets that meet their water efficiency requirements. And then if you want to go the high-tech route, you can attach flow monitoring either on your meter or in line to the house. Those are great options to see as down to every single toilet flush throughout the day.
It is,
You
it
can-
counts them.
Yes. And it'll send you notifications. Some of them can even turn the water off if there is a leak.
Oh.
And with that, we ask the board to declare Fix a Leak Week, March 17th to the 23rd.
Any questions or comments from, yes?
Thank you. That was very helpful, and interesting. Is this the US EPA or the Cal EPA? that does this?
USCPA.
So I mean this in all seriousness, do we know for sure that this week is happening this year?
Their website is updated with these dates, so yes.
The week will happen, but there is an executive order that has asked the EPA to review the water sense program.
Got it.
Hmm,
That's really unfortunate.
wow.
And we in the water industry can't seem to get out of our own way, and a different organization has asked the following week to be known as Groundwater Appreciation Week. So pretty soon we'll find 4 weeks worth of things to celebrate in March. but-
March will be water month.
All right, any,
Through the chair, March 17th is a board meeting day unless we changed it. Are you gonna come back and remind us about this, or are you gonna be out celebrating St. Patty's Day?
I can be here if you need me.
Well, it'd be nice, March 17th,
All right,
to remind everybody this week is Fix a Leak Week. Second reminder. Thank you. Good
Okay.
job.
thank you.
okay, any other comments or questions from the board? I'd entertain a motion to adopt. I'm sorry.
I actually have a chair, through the chair, how can we help you to market this, for lack of a better word, this week here in Monterey?
I mean, we will do some ads to the weekly and the Pine Cone, as well as our social media pages and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there will be a push email through our newsletter as well.
Excellent, thank you.
To the different cities, how can we get it to the cities? And would it be appropriate to ask them to adopt a resolution or something?
What,
That's.
yeah, I think we're,
Well, I mean,
yeah, but. getting
yeah, that's what I'm
stuff
getting to, Dave, is just, how do we get them to discuss it? Right, and so we could send them, hey, the water district is adopting a resolution, but you know, do they really want to talk about what the water district is doing? So,
No, Mayor, that's a great question.
yeah,
Yeah, and to be honest, we used to do this in like the March board meeting as a consent item. And it's like, well, sometimes it was too late. So then we moved it at least to February, thinking. But then we didn't talk about it. It was on the consent calendar. And so now it's an action item. So we're getting better, I guess. But that's a really good question, but maybe we should send something over that can just go into the correspondence in the city council meeting or something.
Yeah, maybe just ask for their support for getting the word out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, I entertain a motion to adopt this resolution declaring fix the leak. Week.
So moved.
Moved and
Second,
second by Beck. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No nos, ayes have it. Item number 11, which is the amendment to the agreement for the employment of the general manager. This is, let's see what we got here. Page 69. This was discussed in closed session, arrived at an agreement to raise the compensation a little bit, but also to renew the agreement in general. And this is what's before us today. It's amendment number 7 to the agreement. And entertain any discussion that the board has about this or the process or anything that they want to comment or ask about? Okay,
Well, I'm glad that we're finally doing this. Time.
well, okay, so we need a motion to approve the
Mr. Chairman,
compensation.
before you
I'm
take a
sorry,
motion, you might want to hear from the public.
you're right. As usual. Any public comment on this item regarding the general manager? Take a pass.
Chair.
Nothing on Zoom?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Thank you. Okay, back to the board. Was there a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the GM contract agreement.
Second.
Second by Amy.
And just quickly on the second, I agree with Director Anderson. It's about time we done this. And we finally caught up with everybody in the district. And he was the last one. He always been the last one to receive anything. But the GM deserves this. He has been doing a great job over these, since he's been here, especially these last, well, let's say 4 or 5 years, dealing with our extracurricular activity that the district have. But I want to thank him for the good work he's doing. And we might get a little flack from this, but I'm prepared to take it because he deserved it. All right.
Well, and surely he didn't anticipate the amount of legal work that would be required.
That's true.
When he
What I'm talking
started
about.
here.
So,
Yes.
yeah, no, I agree with everybody. I don't think the pay is for any extra work that he's doing. It's the pay is for the level work that he's doing.
Yes.
He's doing a fine job. He's always been doing all the work we asked him to do, so. It's, that's just my opinion. You're not being paid for extra work. You're being paid for the level work that you're doing and the skill sets you bring to the district.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve this amendment to the agreement. Any more comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nays? No nays, ayes have it. All right,
I want to thank you for your kind words and your generosity. And you're great board to work with and for. Very much appreciate your leadership. Item 12 is fairly well described in both the staff note and the text. Am I out of order or am I ahead of you?
Bill was right.
no, introduce it and.
No, am I looking at the old agenda?
Oh, it's 12.
Okay, good. And this is the ledge advocacy plan for.
Oh,
the
no.
current
No,
calendar.
Budget.
So it has been moved. Yeah, okay. So sorry, Michelle.
So good evening, Chair, members of the board, Michelle Bali, Finance and Administration. I'll be going over the mid-year budget updates. So item 12 is to consider adoption of the mid-year budget amendments for the current fiscal year. And I'm going to go over the proposed changes. Before I begin, I'm just going to say that this mid-year was unlike a typical mid-year because we had two major events. One was the new MOUs that were adopted in July. And then second, we had the water supply charge that was canceled. And in its place, the district will be paying the water supply charge that was collected in fiscal year 23-24. So let me start off with. So this is a little bit of orientation. The board adopted a budget of 42.8 million in June of last year. And as you can see here, about 1/3 of our budget is reimbursement projects. And a little over 1/3 is the purchase of water from the pure water Monterey system. And then 9% is project expenditures. So the blue kind of signifies the capital expenses. And you can see the 80-20 mix between capital and operating expenses here. Next slide. This slide provides an overview of the revenue that supports the budget. So about 2/3 of our revenue is reimbursement and sale of water. And then we have three major revenue sources. The biggest one is user fees. That's the 8.3% that we collect on the utility bills. Then we have the property tax, and we had the water supply charge, which was covering about 8% of our total revenue. So this slide shows, it compares the year-to-date actuals, both for the revenues and the expenditures with the original budget. So in the first 6 months of the year, the district has collected about 40% of its revenues and has expensed about 27% of its budget. And the major variance here is coming from the capital project side. And the capital project expenses are slated to increase in the second half of the fiscal year. So what is the mid-year budget amendment? This is a very high-level view. We are adding, our staff is proposing to add 4.5% or 1.95 million to the original budget, which would bring the revised budget to 44.8 million. And that 1.9 million has additions and subtractions, which you can see in the other slide. The biggest addition is the water supply charge reimbursement for fiscal year 23-24 that the district needs to reimburse after the settlement. We also have increases on the operating side, both personnel and services and supplies. And then the project expenditure is what's going down, and our original contribution to the general fund is also decreasing. So this slide shows a breakdown of what's changing on the operating side of the budget. Our personnel expenditures are going up by about 475,000. Most of that is salaries and benefits from 3 MOUs that were put into effect. We have also set aside expenditures for the new AGM that recruitment is going on. So that's the second recruitment line item that you see there. So overall, personal expenditures are going up by about 9%. Services and supplies, here there's a big increase. So we're increasing that budget by about 625,000, which is about 30% of the original budget. And most of that is coming from legal services and the first 2 line items that you see here. And this is related to the settlement of the water supply charge litigation with the Monterey Taxpayers Association. The district just got 2 checks that amounted to the 545,000 up there. Plus, we also anticipate sending out letters with postages to about 31,000 residents. And that's the legal notices budget that you see up there. And besides that, we had some other extraneous expenses for facilities. Our HVAC the condensate unit broke down. We are replacing windows. We had some vehicle repairs, the transmission failed. There's a leaf. I think the brake pad needed to clean up. So anyways, all in all, services and supplies going up by 625,000.
And let's pause on that one just for a second. So the legal services, just the nuance, it's not our attorney's fees. So it's not the cost of fighting, but it's the actual legal fee payout. There were the two checks he alluded to were for the original Superior Court claim for legal fees, and then there was a follow-up for the appeal. And then the notices could conceivably go up, as Mr. Laredo pointed out. We hope to have a set of terms and conditions that are accepted by the court. And that may require 2 mailings instead of 1. And so we'll have to deal with this budget a little bit, because there's a question right now whether we need to first notify everyone that they're in the class of class action participants, so they can either opt in or opt out, and then follow up with another mailing for their actual refund. So some of this is just working itself out. So there'll be some modifications.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Also on the facility, the maintenance to 22,000. We said we're going to get an emergency generator. Is that still in the budget?
There's a pad that just got poured.
It just got poured?
Yep.
Because I drive through there,
Yeah, and
I've
there's,
been looking.
and they'll be doing the conduit later this week, I think.
This Friday, yeah,
Yeah.
the gas
Okay,
lines are gonna be.
just staying on schedule, what should be done. All right, thank you.
And we have,
Some,
and we have 3 broken windows. One, remember the big windstorm we had
Yeah.
about a month ago?
Yeah, I got a
So we had,
fence.
yeah, so we had one that cracked the seal, so it's double pane, so it's no longer, so it's, it needs to be replaced. And then we had 2 that had film put on them to lessen the light,
Sun glare.
but it ended up creating kind of a heat trap. And so it ended up cracking 2 windows.
Wow,
Yeah.
from one of those films that they put on?
So the film was put on the inside pane, and I think what happened is the sunlight came through and then accumulated on the inside. And so the heat differential, probably with that windstorm together, resulted. So just, things you can't anticipate, but these are all, 8 foot by
Yeah.
8 foot.
Full height windows
Yeah.
like this. 3 of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you for that. So this next slide is what's changing on the project expenditure side. The project expenditures budget is going down by 1.8 million, and that's coming out of 3 sources. The first one is we are reducing the budget for buying the operating reserve. So the original budget had 400 acre feet, and now we're reducing that budget to 250 acre feet. And I think that's consistent with the way I think things are going. Also, the grants for integrated resource water management, those expenses are being reduced by 1.2 million. And then we also reduced our original budget for Measure J related acquisition costs. So that's coming down by 1.2 million. And offsetting all of these decreases is an increase in the budget for the pure water monitor expansion project. And here we get the best estimate from the project manager, and then we apply a 15% contingency. So so that's where the pure water monitor expansion project increase is coming from.
And these will probably come back into the regular budget because they're deferrals more than reductions. At least in terms of the IRWM grants and.
Right, just kicking the can down the road.
So through the chair, with the federal government cutting grants, are we hurt anyway by that?
The answer is no. And we,
I think these are, yes, we have signed these agreements, so maybe new agreements might be on the block, but these are existing agreements.
Okay.
and it's very important to understand that we've got over 40 million of grants against the cost of the expansion project. and the funding for the remainder is through an EPA program called WIFIA, Water Infrastructure Financing. And those are on the deferral block. So that his point that having a signed agreement is crucial, because if you didn't get to that point, or even state revolving funds with the state of California that are co-funded through the EPA, if you don't already have a signed agreement, chances are you will be delayed, if not, I don't think that the monies that have already been authorized will necessarily be repossessed, so to speak. But we are already hearing of others with expected delays. So we're in good shape. Most of our grant monies are actually state separate than the state revolving fund. One was a governor's budget earmark and the other was a Department of Water Resources grant. So those two are safe on our side. But on Monterey One Water side, we have 10 million from the federal U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. And that one luckily has a funding agreement in place. So they have confirmed that one's protected and the WIFIA loan is protected.
Is that a multi-year agreement with Monterey One Water?
Yeah, it was signed like 2 years ago, and then when you're ready and you begin to pull money down, you submit reimbursement requests.
What's a national issue about whether there's going to be cuts in those programs?
Anyway, so that's project expenditures. This slide shows all the moving pieces on the revenue side. So how are we funding the additional 1.95 million in budget? It's mainly coming from two sources. The one in red is the increase in revenue. So we are anticipating an increase of about 1.4 million in revenue. That would be broken up, in the fashion that's shown here. Most of that increase is coming from increases in user fee, a 10% increase in what we had budgeted originally. A little bit in property taxes, that's a 3% increase from what we received in fiscal year 23-24. And since interest rates are high, our interest or investment income is also slated to be higher this year. And then we are anticipating that we'll have to dip into our general fund balance. And so this mid-year budget is an additional 600,000 from contribution from the fund balance. And here you can see we are also taking 175,000 out of the litigation reserve because of the settlement payments concerning the MTA litigation. So the previous slide was about revenues. This slide is about expenditures. What has changed? Again, I've gone over this, but three major buckets. The first one is the operating side, an increase in 1.1 million on the operating side, which is broken down between personnel, services, and supplies. A reduction in the project expenditures, and an increase in the water supply charge reimbursement. And in the original budget, we were anticipating that we would contribute about 616,000 towards the general reserve. That's not going to happen. Next slide. This one's a little hard to see, but this is our best guess or an estimate of our reserve at the end of the fiscal year. So as of June 30th, what's our reserve position going to look like? At this point, we are still anticipating that the general operating reserve will be above 17 million. But this number needs to be taken in context because we are exposed to a lot of litigation related liabilities. Plus the water supply charge has gone away. And so in subsequent years, our rate of growth of expenses might be higher compared to revenues. So we might be drawing down on this general operating reserve. So with that concludes my presentation. Back to the chair. I'm here for questions.
Other questions or comments or additions?
Have a-
from anyone? Yes.
On it. I wanted to say that Michelle's report was so clear that I actually understood the whole thing when I read it this time. And I really appreciate that. I may have to go slow, but I could cross-check everything. It was all there. I said, gee, that's all there. So I really appreciated the way that you wrote out for the revenues and expenses, something about each of the items. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little topsy-turvy as we get into the exposure with the litigation without knowing for sure. But also it's nice to see what we think might be the end of the process of the challenge from the Taxpayers Association and finding, ways that we can kind of complete that process. I'm just looking forward to that. Okay, any comments from the public? We'll see if there's where it goes. Hello, Tom.
Good evening, Tom Raleigh, Vice President, Monterey Peninsula Taxpayers Association. Really glad to see that it's finally reached the stage where it's in a detailed budget item. And, we have the old statement about a few million here, a few million there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. The 44 million is the biggest budget I think you guys have ever had. And it used to be like 3, 4, 8 million, 7 million, not that long ago. So you've had been literally the user fee has gone up so significantly, you've got money to burn. And the fact that you are losing the water supply charge, this thing, it doesn't bankrupt you in any way or limit your ability to continue to fund the projects and the favorite projects of this general manager. And he's always got a few favorite projects in his hip pocket. I know that. So anyway, congratulations on finally carrying through. There's a lot of taxpayers that have asked President Rick Hoyer, when are we getting our refund? So I'm glad to see that this is happening and you're to be congratulated on following through and making sure it does happen. So thank you.
Come back next month because you might hear the last chapter. Any other comments from the Zoom people?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay. Back to the board. I think that's our last action item, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
but you need
Oh,
to
no,
act on
I'm
this.
sorry. Got one more.
Need to take action and just a comment from me before we start taking that action.
Yeah.
Good job to our CFO.
Yeah.
And GM for coming up with this. I thought it was going to be a nightmare, but I'm happy with it. And I want to tell the public, we don't have all that money. We still got work to do on water supply. We talked about ASR. We still gonna keep moving. And we might come back and ask you again to contribute to something. So I just want to put that out there. We is not as rich as people think. We just got good managers that have been taking care of things, investing and moving stuff around and still getting stuff done like that emergency generator that we need for the district. So on that note, I yield my time.
You yield. Who do you yield to? The chair.
Motion?
The chair looking for a motion.
Look at that seaside too much.
Yeah, probably.
No. I'm waiting for, I was asking if he was gonna make a motion, but it sounds like you are.
No, I'm waiting to second your motion.
I'll make
I will
that.
move,
Go ahead.
I will move, for adoption. I move adoption of the mid-year fiscal year. Is that where we're at? No, yeah,
Yes.
2024-2025 budget adjustment.
Second it, and then on the question.
Okay, on the question, yes.
I just want to say, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we were found, the court decided that fee should go away, so we're happy to return the money. And we're just glad we're in a position to turn taxpayers their money. Like Director Edwards said, in the future, we'll do a better job of how we delineate and talk about any future, fees or anything like that, but we're happy to return money that the court said we shouldn't be having. So, thank you, Chair.
Well, I'm just glad to see the two sides that are working out the settlement agreement on this, and it's not going to continue the litigation. That's really helpful. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve or adopt this mid-year budget adjustment. All in favor, say aye. 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 Opposed? No nays. Ayes have it. Yeah, last item, general manager.
Yeah, I've already given half of this. I do want to point out, when you
Yes.
hear about the size of the budget, this year's budget includes about 16 million in capital, which will go away when the expansion project's finished. Yes, I have some other ideas in my pocket, but they're not that big and they're not immediately essential. So
We like your big ideas.
So can I say something before you go, through the chair?
Yes.
And a lot of that is grant money, right? So if we don't have these great ideas, what the general manager has, and we're able to get these grant monies, then they would not be in the budget. It'd be so large.
yeah, that's a very good point. It's almost one-to-one trade-off on that 16 million. Yeah. This last item is the annual adoption of the legislative advocacy plan. It's pretty self-descriptive. I wanted to point out 3 changes from last year, and they're subtle. One is you now see that Adam Schiff is our senator for our state legislative advocacy. And then the 2 other just points of primacy that we already all kind of know about is this is the year for working on lifting of the cease and desist order. So that's priority number 1, and it's state oriented. And priority number 2, which is also state oriented, is an omnibus bill to allow special districts enforcement powers on the brand new reporting of urban water efficiency objectives. The way the legislation was written a year ago was cities, states, and public water systems enforce. And that doesn't help the Santa Claras of the world or the Humboldts of the world or ourselves here. So that's a minor one. At the federal level, we just last week informed our federal liaison that we will not be pursuing a community project funding grant, which is essentially an earmark this year. Last year, we pursued funding for the Army Corps of Engineers program. That still sits in a bill. We're waiting for reconciliation between the House's number and the Senate's number, and there's about a $55 million difference. If they get the bigger number, then we think that there's some money in there that we can get started with the San Francisco-based Army Corps people just to get a funding agreement approved. And then that would lead to the next level would be some design work for these little tiny like stormwater diversion. Seaside has a couple of them. Delray Oaks has a couple of potential. And the idea would be to get these diversions into the pure water collection system.
Wow.
So we'll see what happens with that one. It's, as I said, it's already in a bill that needs reconciliation. But it's a painfully slow process. And these would be dribs and drabs. It'd be like 700,000 for the first all in. And then we're also keeping up on so our last year, we applied for a community project funding. And then we stepped back and let the city of Seaside step in, but the same project was for a replacement or an augmentation municipal well. And that money was approved through an earmark. It's just they also don't have their legislation in place to come claim that money. So we're at least staying on top of it. I think Seaside is staying on top of it as well, but we'll work together to make sure that once it's available, that it is made available. So, I think we've had a pretty good run. I mentioned all the grants for pure water, but we've had a great 7-8 year run on funding. So this year will be a little less at the federal level. I don't think we want to get in the business of hiring and firing federal support. So you'll have some years where they don't do as much work, and then you'll have some years where they more than pay for themselves. And with that, we're just looking for approval of the plan for the calendar year.
On not this legislative plan, but what's going to be happening next year? It seems to me there's going to be all sorts of activity around throughout the country over these kind of grants and these kind of open doors to kind of.
Well, we are expecting a federal water program that may have impact here locally, so we're following that. The bigger concern we had is the region as a whole has been pretty successful with earmarks. So not just ourselves, but a variety of folks. And the earmarks were kind of a bipartisan problem previously. And so when Biden got elected, earmarks came back, but they had been off the table for a number of years. But when they came back with some guardrails on it. So, for example, a representative, a congressman in the House could only apply for, I think, 15, or there's a limit. So it's not it's not an unlimited bucket. It's a limited pool. And so our first question to our federal liaisons last week was, are earmarks going to go away? And the answer seems to be they aren't going to go away because they've been used more judiciously, and both Republicans and Democrats like them. So we're hopeful they stay, because we've got some ideas maybe for next year. So that's one. The other is just tracking the large potential infrastructure bill really at the state level. Another bond could make it on the ballot this year. So, and the last time Prop 1 was the last giant local bill, but it also came during a time when our budgets were just balancing themselves at the state level, and now it's not so flush. So
Interesting times. Okay, well, any public comment?
Tom Raleigh again, speaking as a citizen and a retired Navy veteran. 20 and a half years before I came back here. Our usual NPS coordinating lady is not here, Mary Ann. Already the CNO has been fired by the president. There's going to be a new CNO. She just came out in January with a big policy on how we're going to get ready for the announced 2027 attempted takeover of Taiwan by Red China. I haven't heard what happened to the Secretary of the Navy, but he's been very positive in trying to get ships replenished, rebuilt, rehabbed, and back at sea. My understanding is the Innovation Center was at least half of the funds were committed to build it. I think sometimes the last half could be the problem. And I don't think they can expect any extra money coming from the administration, the current administration, except for emphasis on the shipbuilding program, which is desperately needed by the Navy. We are very, very thin. I'm aware of this as a Navy retiree, but it's something you need to be aware of. The Monterey Bay Defense Alliance, you were at the meeting. 1/6 of our local economy is based on DoD income and other impacts. And the thing is, we need the desal for our support of military in the future. That's why I'm sold on it. I don't care if it costs twice what you're talking about. We need it to support the future of the military in this area. If we don't have that desal plant, we are jeopardizing that. And I think you need to reconsider your support for desal, because it's really needed, and it's needed long-term to have a sustainable, reliable water supply. And we heard last month from the guy in charge of the county, they're going to pick that supply of water up. It's going to be used for projects in the Salinas Valley. And you ignored it, you approved it. I said it was premature, but that water's not going to be there in 10 years, or maybe 5 years, maybe less, as the things becomes more and more a crisis in the groundwater support. So I suggest to you, you need to look at your priority lists and the support for desal. And whatever policies that were generated before to oppose it, you need to reconsider that policy and get behind it. And it would really help move that project forward if everybody got on board, and especially this board. So that's my private comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. How about on Zoom?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Raise hands, okay, back to the board. So this is recommended to be adopted as the legislative advocacy plan for twenty
Yeah,
twenty-five.
or just approval.
Approve, okay, just approve. Okay, open to motion, unless there are questions.
Yeah, a question. Here. Have y'all had your first meeting? The committee?
So the committee meets in like 4 or 5 weeks, I think. So
March tenth, I believe.
March 10th, yeah.
Yeah, because I love to hear what the federal people
Yeah.
are saying now
Mhm.
with the change of administration, because this could change.
Yeah, now I did, so we have a monthly call.
Yeah.
So we did have our monthly call with them, but they will present at the committee meeting to the
Okay,
longevity.
yeah, because I love to hear that, what's going on in Washington.
The Legislative Advocacy Committee's meeting on March 20th. And-
Yes,
Is that one I'm on? I'm
Yes.
just curious. Okay. Don't have the calendar yet.
I've spoken to your office. It's on your
Okay.
calendar.
Perfect.
what day of the week is the 20th?
It's a Thursday.
Just to
Perfect.
help clarify.
Perfect. Got it. Thursdays are good.
But if you miss it, it'd be on the YouTube.
Yes, it's a Zoom meeting.
Zoom meeting. Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? We have a motion to approve the legislative advocacy plan.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, motion carried. GM, are there more things to comment on before we head for?
Nope,
Adjournment.
enjoy what might be considered an early evening.
Yeah.
I have one question.
Yes,
Through the chair, the one public letter that we received,
Yes.
Yeah,
is that in reference to the 1.8 billion gallons this person's asking about? Is that in reference to the allocation? Or what ordinance? Or
yes,
do we know where this is
I,
coming from?
yes, that's,
since the allocation is water.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then
again.
the second part is, do we respond? Because it was very specific what the current, with the cease and desist order in place. It was very specific what those allocations at this point in time will be able to be used for. So there's a lack of understanding in the letter as to what they are for, that those allocations can be used for, but I don't know if we just leave that, do we respond?
We have not responded to this one. And Sarah's smiling because there are also letters and emails we get that don't typically rise to the level of the packet of correspondence. I included this one just because I wanted you to see some of the kinds of correspondence we get, whether well-informed or poorly informed.
Really informed.
But I had not planned to do a response.
Okay, got it, that's fine, we'll leave it at that.
Far out. That's what it is.
Okay, well, it's good to know there are people out there that do care and do express themselves, so that's helping us.
The letter was read.
So nothing more, meeting adjourned with a coffee cup.
Good job.